Hi my loves, welcome back to my channel. Welcome if you guys are new. We are still in the early stages of 2026, and whilst this video could be considered a tiny bit late, I thought we'd go over some of my most anticipated releases for 2026 and things that I think should be on your radar. If you're a fantasy lover, we have an incredible year coming up. Even if you're not a fantasy lover, so many incredible releases. A lot of series that are continuing this year that we got the first book last year or however many years ago. So many exciting releases, to be honest. So I thought we could just go through them together and I'll talk about all my thoughts, get them on your radar. Some of these I didn't even realize were releasing this year, so very exciting stuff. And we have a few like announcements. Yeah, some very exciting bookish stuff really. So grab a little snack, sit back and enjoy, and let's talk all things new releases. The first book I actually have a physical arc for, so when I do have a physical arc, I'll be holding it up, but that's not for a lot of these books, to be honest. One is A Stage Set for Villains by Shannon J. Spann. The little blurb on the back is like a little poem. So it says, "The mortals made a treaty to keep the players south, and when the treaty ended, a wall to keep them out. And if the wall should crumble, then marks will keep us safe. And if the marks should fail us, gods have mercy on our fate." This one sounds like a really fun, unique fantasy that I haven't read in a long time. It doesn't feel like the same kind of fantasy we've had for a lot. So the blurb on Goodreads says, "The gods are dead, all that's left are the players. The performers of the playhouse are as worshipped as they are feared. Their enchanting show bending hearts, minds, and even reality itself. Vicious, godlike, lethal. 18-year-old River Hesper knows the dangers better than anyone, after her own encounter with a player resulted in a curse that is slowly killing her. When the Playhouse announces the spectacle of a lifetime, a chance for one mortal to steal a player's immortality, Riven sees her chance to live." So as I said, very, very unique. It feels like we have really high stakes as well. I am super excited to get into this one. I think it's a bit of a dark academia fantasy as well. I honestly just wanted to put this one on your radars because until this showed up on my doorstep, I didn't know it was coming out. So I just wanted to put it on your radar because it sounds really, really fun, really exciting. I feel like I've mentioned this one in a few videos in the past, so we'll go very briefly over it, but The Ballad of Falling Dragons by Sarah A. Parker. This is the second book to When the Moon Hatched, which is a fantasy romance. I loved When the Moon Hatched because it felt like such a well thought out fantasy romance. We had such a strong plot and high stakes and then some romance alongside of that. So it just felt like a really well balanced book. And sometimes romances can, I don't know, focus too much on the romance and the plot kind of becomes a background thing. This was not the case for this one. This one I absolutely loved. I thought it was so mythical. I loved our creatures in it. Like, I am a sucker for a mythical creature, you guys know this. The Ballad of Falling Dragons. Oh my god. We have been waiting for this book for so long. It was meant to come out, I think like October last year. Then it got pushed back and then it got pushed back again. And I think we are finally getting a release date in May of 2026. So we do have a cover reveal. I think this is going to be our last pushback. I think it's set in stone now that it's going to be releasing. I hope it is, because me, along with so many of you, I'm sure, have just been waiting and waiting for this one. And it feels like it's been too long. So hopefully this is releasing within the first half of the year. Another arc I have physically is Vow of Eternal Night by Lily Crozier. This, for all my vampire lovers, this is a vampire fantasy romance. It is a retelling of Beauty and the Beast, and this just sounds like so much fun. I'm really hoping to get to this one soon as well. This one comes out on the 17th of February, so it's definitely sooner. And honestly, I just haven't read a vampire romance in a long time, so I'm very excited about this. It says, "Clara has always known that monsters are real, and the worst of them is Prince Raleigh, I think, of Rostenburg. For years, the prince has treated his people as livestock to sate his thirst for blood. When he decides it's time to marry, Clara finds herself at the center of his attention. Abducted and forced into a betrothal against her will, Clara will do anything to escape her fate." A fun vampire romance. I have been loving vampire romances recently. I mean, I love them ever since I read Twilight, I'm not even gonna lie. And it's just sometimes hard to find like a good, unique vampire romance. Honestly, a lot of them are very Twilight-ish. So this is very high up on my priority TBR. I can't wait to get to this one. Also, the cover is stunning. It's so pretty. I'm so excited. Now, when I was scrolling through Goodreads, or lists just curating every release of this year, I came across this book and I do not know why this has not been on my radar until now. But this is The Last King of Fairy by Cassandra Clare. Guys, we are getting another Shadowhunters book in the Shadowhunters world. I was not expecting that. I know she came out with a book recently that's like a collection of short stories, but I believe this is the first in a trilogy. The trilogy is called The Wicked Powers, and it's the final trilogy in the Shadowhunter Chronicles. So this is a very bittersweet moment. I love Cassandra Clare. The Shadowhunters world was like one of the series that got me into reading and into romancy. I do like The Mortal Instruments, but I love The Last Hours and Clockwork Prince. So those are my like favorite trilogies. Some of my favorite trilogies I have ever read. In this, we are following characters we are familiar with. We've got Kit Harold, Ty Blackthorn, and Drusilla Blackthorn. We are following these three characters as they are drawn into the final massive conflict between the side of demons and the side of angels. Their story drives a narrative as Drew is pulled into matters of fairy and the life of Ash Morganston, and Kit and Ty must solve a mysterious disappearance. This is one I do think will only be for readers of Cassandra Clare, because I do recommend reading the rest of her series before you go into this one, because we are drawing on some information that happened in past series, which is why I'm not gonna say the rest of the blurb, because it is a little bit of a spoiler for the rest of the series basically. But yeah, this is your sign to start working through this Cassandra Clare backlog, because it is amazing. It's so fun. And when I found out that we were getting a new book in this series is so exciting. So it says it'll be out everywhere in fall of 2026. So we don't have an exact release date yet. I can't wait for this one. Another book I am super excited, and this one comes out very, very soon. It comes out on the 20th of January, is The Poet Empress. Now, this one I have heard so much about, specifically from Jamie, of course. And I believe this just has a really unique magic system. It is a fantasy. I think it's a standalone fantasy. And I believe in this world, the magic system is based off poems and scripts, writing and reading in general. So it's a really unique kind of magic system. We are set in a dynasty that is basically crumbling. The emperor is dying, the land is consumed by famine, and poetry magic is all lost except to the very powerful. We do have a line of romance as well in this, but I just have heard that like the actual magic system and the world building in this is absolutely incredible. Very, very unique. As I feel like I keep saying that, but we do have some really fun different reads coming. And it makes me so excited to get to this one. So yeah, that one comes out very, very soon. I don't know when this video is going up, but it might even be out by the time you see this. So yeah, we'll see, but very excited about that one. This one I thought I'd throw in because I'm not necessarily sure if I will be reading it, but I'm sure a lot of you will be, and that is Furybound. This is the second book to Diabound. I enjoyed Diabound, but I didn't think it was anything absolutely incredible. It's a fun fantasy romance though, so if you want a fun fantasy romance, you'll enjoy it. I think if you like Fourth Wing, it kind of gave Fourth Wing but make the dragons wolves. Basically, we are following our main protagonist and her sister goes missing. This is in the first one, in Diabound, if you haven't read it. Her sister goes missing and she thinks that the only chance of her finding her sister is becoming a soldier and joining the front lines, because there is this big war that has been going on for years and years. But to become a soldier, you have to go through wolf trial, basically dire wolf trial, to see if you have what it takes to bond with a dire wolf. And if you do, that means you will be a very elite soldier who will be able to obviously fight with your dire wolf. And if you aren't, you can go to the front lines. So she pretty much just wants to pass this to go to the front lines. I'm sure you can imagine what happens next. The romance in this was kind of interesting. I do think that is going to be quite interesting in the next book. I think it's going to be explored in a different way. Make it a little bit of a different romance in the next book. So yeah, I'm curious to see what this one, I'm not sure if I'm going to read it or not, but it is an exciting release for a lot of people, and so that's why I included it. Coming out on May 5th. Not too far away. I'm getting through all the fantasies first, and then we'll go on to some general fiction and romance. One that I am so excited, this is another continuation in a series, Burn of the Everflame. I love Spark of the Everflame. I love that series. I know it's not for everyone, but I love that series. I know the main protagonist can be annoying. It is what it is in my mind. I think the main male protagonist makes up for the fact that she's so annoying, to be honest. If you haven't heard of Burn of the Everflame, this is a fantasy romance series. We are following DM, who basically lives in a world that is divided between different powers. Honestly, there was just something about this world that captured me instantly and made me giddy, and it had all the kind of magical elements that you love in a fantasy and just makes you remember why you love reading. Again, I know it's not for everyone, but personally, I really enjoyed this book. And again, Burn of the Everflame is one that has been pushed back and pushed back and pushed back. I think it has a lot to do with the fact that this was indie published first. So I read this all on my Kindle, and yeah, the first few books were indie published, and then it got picked up by a traditional publisher. So they were slowly pushed out as traditionally published. And I think that's pushed back the date for the next one, because obviously it has to go through more editing processes than it did when they were getting indie published. I think that's just me guessing. I'm not entirely sure. Nevertheless, I am so excited to finally see where our characters go. We were left on the massive cliffhanger after the third book. The third book was also massive. It was like 1,000 pages long, and yet I absolutely sped through it. Just the writing is very easy to understand. It's very easy to get lost in. So it's about time we get that one. And all we know is that it's releasing mid to late 2026. So we've still got a while. We've still got a while. If you want to read the series, I'm sure you'll get it done before then. So may as well start it now, then you won't have a massive wait like a lot of us. Another release that is a continuation again, and I think this is kind of similar situation to Burn of the Everflame. This is the second book to Metal Slinger, and if you've read Metal Slinger, I think whether you loved it or didn't love it, you kind of are like itching to know what happens after the ending of that book. I think it's pretty widely known that Metal Slinger ends on quite a big cliffhanger. Some people love it, some people hate it. I didn't mind it. I kind of was like very shocked, and it kind of came out of nowhere, but like also I'm very curious to see where the story is going to go on from here. Like, where is our protagonist going to go? I don't know. I will be reading it because I'm so curious on where our story is going to go. But I mean, it's a similar situation to Burn of the Everflame because this was also indie published first and then picked up by a traditional publisher. So this has been pushed back a few times as well. And I believe this is releasing on the 9th of June. So not too long to wait. We are following our protagonist Bryn, who has basically been training to be, actually, you know what? I'm going to read the blurb because it's better explaining it than I am. Even though she's not one of them, Bryn has spent her life among the Alaha, a community exiled to live at sea, training to be a guard and waiting for a chance to attend an annual market hosted by the Kenta, the very same people who exiled her adopted community. Going to the market is a rite of passage, eagerly anticipated by all young guards. But Bryn does not anticipate breaking a century-long peace treaty whilst there. That is kind of like literally the very beginning. We go on this very kind of big quest type adventure thing. It is really entertaining. I did find this book really entertaining. So I do think it's worth the read. I reckon you'll either love or hate the ending, but very curious to see. We travel via ship and everything. It's very entertaining. Also, so random, just like when you pronounce things in your head, is that like completely different to when you have to read them out? Because just reading that now, I was like, I don't talk about this book very much, but I don't think I've talked about the communities and like when I had to pronounce them out loud. That was very different to what I'd been saying in my head. Anyway, we also have 2 novellas coming out from 2 of my favorite series ever. So this is very exciting. The first one is a Six of Crows novella. This is going to be, I think, like letters from our Six of Crows characters that kind of weave a bit of a story. I don't think there has been a set date when I am filming this. If there has, I'll let you know on the screen, but there hasn't been a set date from what I know of this novella being released. I was really surprised to get this because I'm obsessed with the Six of Crows. Of course, I want more from our characters, but I just didn't think we would be getting it after such a long break in between the last book in this universe releasing. I'm sure you guys know what the Six of Crows is, but if you don't, Six of Crows is a duology. It is part of the Grishaverse as a whole, which is basically this universe that Leigh Bardugo has created. We have the Shadow and Bone trilogy, Six of Crows, and King of Scars duology. And this is going to be following our characters from Six of Crows. So I'm really excited to be back in this world. I also get a lot of questions just while we're talking about it, whether to read Shadow and Bone before you read Six of Crows or whether you can watch the TV show before you read Six of Crows. So my advice always is to read Shadow and Bone before you go into Six of Crows, just because I think it explains the world and the magic system and the politics a lot better, and then you can go into Six of Crows with all that background knowledge. There are a few links between it, so I just feel like it adds to the story as a whole. I wouldn't recommend watching the series before you go on to Six of Crows, because in the series they've basically intertwined the timelines. So Shadow and Bone, Six of Crows, very different timelines. In the books, in the movies, they put it into one. So you basically are watching the Six of Crows story. So you'll have the whole story of the Six of Crows spoiled for you if you watch the TV series, but like up to you. But yeah, that's my advice. The other novella we have had an announcement for, again, we don't have a date yet, but that is a Jax and Evangeline novella. We are returning to the Magnificent North. I am so excited, by Stephanie Garber. This is the Once Upon a Broken Heart Caraval world, but yeah, we are going to be having a Jax and Evangeline novella, so directly related to Once Upon a Broken Heart, which is one of my favorite YA trilogies ever. I love it so much. I think that world is so magical and mystical and dreamlike. Honestly, one of my favorite fantasy worlds I have ever read about. These 2 novellas are obviously only going to be relevant if you love the Six of Crows or the Once Upon a Broken Heart series, so I wanted to throw them in there though, but they haven't been that advertised, especially the Jax and Evangeline novella. We've only kind of had Stephanie Garber announce a few times that she's going to be writing that, so I don't know, I'm very excited about it. I hope you guys are too if you like the series. I think this is the last fantasy on this list, and that is The Knave and the Moon by Rachel Gillig. If you read The Night and the Moth this year and loved it like me, you will be super excited about this release. So yes, it is a continuation to Night and the Moth. Night and the Moth is basically an amazing gothic fantasy by Rachel Gillig. We are set in a world where divination is like the core to the magic system. We are following our main protagonist, who is a diviner. She can kind of use divination to tell people's prophecies, almost like tell people's futures. And so people come from all over the land to kind of get an insight into what their future holds, whether it's good, whether it's bad, whether they've got things to avoid, everything like that. The actual magic system was incredible to me. I loved this book so much, so I am so excited to get a continuation in this, and this is coming out in September of 2026. I don't believe we have an exact release date yet, but yeah, a little while to wait. I think I'll almost do a reread of Night and the Moth before it, to be honest, maybe like an audiobook reread, because it was so magical and I loved it so much. Rachel Gillig is definitely one of my favorite fantasy authors by far. Okay, I think they were all the fantasies that are really high up on my TBR. We only have a few romances. Well, kind of, I don't know. First of all, The Night We Met by Abby Jimenez. I love Abby Jimenez. I feel like you guys know that by now. She's one of my favorite romance authors. I feel like the books she writes, oh, they're so moving. They are so incredibly moving. And this one is a continuation. This is actually set in the same world that Say You'll Remember Me is. Say You'll Remember Me was her release last year, and it also has a very small link to her other series, which is like Yours Truly, part of this world, just for the summer. So it's kind of fun having all these like interlinked books, and she just always has a really deep message within her romances. Her characters are always really realistic, really flawed, and I feel like there's someone for anyone to connect to. Like, you feel really seen when you read her books, and that's not always a thing. So the little blurb says, in everyone's life there's a split-second decision that can change everything. For Larissa, it came when choosing which guy to ride home with after a concert. That night she had no idea she'd meet the perfect man. She and Chris are great together, co-parenting a slightly unhinged rescue Yorkie, sharing their favorite books and judging bread. Okay, I guess they judge bread. Okay. Anyway, for the first time amid all her side hustles to scrape by, things feel finally easy. But Chris isn't the one who drove Larissa home all those months ago. Chris is her boyfriend's best friend. All Chris wants for Larissa is to be happy. Standing by on the sidelines is slowly killing him, but making a move would destroy someone else. He's just not that guy. I will say, half the time I don't always love the premises, and I'm like, oh, if I saw this at a bookstore, I don't know that I would pick it up because that kind of looks like an awkward situation. But then I end up picking it up anyway, and I absolutely love it because Abby Jimenez is an incredibly talented author. So yeah, I will definitely be reading this like literally day of release. I will be reading this so soon. I am so excited for it. She really like touches your soul. Her, Emily Henry, and Taylor Jenkins Reid, love them. Another exciting romance release, speaking of like Emily Henry and stuff, is Just Friends by Hayley Pham. So this is coming out on the 3rd of March 2026. So honestly quite soon. I am very excited about this one. I actually feel a little bit bad for Hayley because I feel like there was a lot of discourse around this, and I think some of it wasn't really necessary. And since that has happened, I've seen some people come out and be like, this is actually like a really good debut. It may not be perfect, but it's a really great romance, and I do think it definitely delves into some kind of deeper topics as well. We are following Blair and Deacon, and they were childhood friends, inseparable growing up, but when an impulsive kiss took them from friends to something more, everything changed. Just as quickly as their romance started, one moment shattered it all, leaving them with nothing but heartbreak and silence. Now, 4 years later, Blair is back on their coastal home of Seabrook to support her mum and care for her great aunt. To make ends meet, Blair applies to work at a coffee shop, only to discover it's managed by none other than Declan, the boy she loved, the boy she lost, the boy who still makes her heart race. I guess it's like a childhood friends to lovers, which I actually don't mind that trope. I've read some really great tropes like that. I'm really excited to read this, to be honest. I'm really excited to see what Hayley Pham's writing is like because she's such a big reader, because she started out on booktube. Like, I think that's so cool. Go her for following her passion, following her dreams. And I know she has actually been writing for a long time. Like, this isn't just a spare of the moment thing. Like, I know she's been writing poetry and stuff since she was quite young. So I'm very excited to read this. I'm gonna keep all the reviews to the back of my head until I read it, and then I can make my own decision on it. Another romance author I kind of fell in love with unexpectedly was Liz Tomford. Wait, one of you commented that it's actually not Liz Tomford, it's like Liz Tomfordy. Tomfordy? Apparently the E isn't silent. I needed to clarify that, but I saw a comment the other day on one of my videos and said that they learned that and they were retelling the information to me, so that's quite interesting. Anyway, I fell in love with her books because I read the Windy City series. They are a sports romance series, and sports romance for me can either really, really hit or they're just not gonna do it for me. This was so good. It was so much fun. I loved the Windy City series. Some books better than others. It is quite a long series. It's an interconnected series. I do think you could technically read these as standalones though, if you really wanted to read specific books from this series. I think read them all together. It's really fun. So I'm very excited to go into In Her Own League. We are following Reese Remington, who is the first female team owner of a major basketball league. With a sharp mind and years of experience working behind the scenes, she is more than qualified. qualified. But the public only sees a woman in a man's world, not the person who's earned their place on the field. Under constant scrutiny and pressure to prove herself, Reese can't afford distractions, especially one that comes in the form of the team's tempting field manager who questions her every decision. Emmett Montgomery is a former all-star turned coach who treats his players like family and the field like home. After years of running the team his way, the last thing he wants is a new boss, let alone someone who seems ice cold and laser focused on business. But forced to spend long hours and too many away games side by side, he begins to see the fire beneath Reese's control, the heart behind her ambition, and the unwavering determination to prove herself. Also, we do have some overlapping characters here. I am so excited to read this. I love Liz Tomford's books. It is coming on March 3rd, 2026. So again, very, very soon. Another one that I think I will be reading very, very close to release. Like, I am so excited to read this one. With romances these days, there are only very few that I am super excited to read. I don't know. I'm not always gravitating towards them, but when I like love an author, I love an author, and I will be reading every single one of their books. I think this is the last book on our list. This one I actually found whilst browsing Goodreads, and it sounds really, really interesting. I'm definitely wanting to get into more contemporary fiction as well this year. I've talked a few times about wanting to broaden my horizons when it comes to reading. So this is one that I'm really excited about, and I wanted to share it with you guys. It is called Where the Wildflowers Grow by Tira Shelton Harris, and it comes out on 17th of February, so quite soon. It says, Lay is the last of the wilds. She knows this because she watched them all die. Grief never truly fades, and even as tragedy haunts her, Lay carries on because survival is in her blood. So when the transport bus taking her to prison careens off the road, killing everyone on board except her, she does what's in her nature. She survives. While searching for a place to hide, Lee stumbles upon an unexpected sanctuary, a flower farm in rural Alabama, tucked away from the world. What Lee doesn't expect is the found family there who have built something from the wreckage of their own lives, especially Jackson, the farm's owner, who sees through Lay's defense, offers her small moments of tenderness, and encourages her to face her own tragedies. Slowly, Lee finds peace with her hard pace and soft nature of the farm, taking comfort in the life blooming around her. This just sounds like we're going to really delve into dealing with grief, finding your place in the world, and finding ways to deal with your own tragedies. From the reviews I've read, apparently it is just a really, really moving story. It is incredibly impactful, and yeah, it just sounds like something I want to read. It sounds like a general fiction that I have been really drawn to recently. I've been really drawn to complex characters and working through their own reality, I guess, things they struggle with. I don't know, it just sounds really interesting to me, so I wanted to throw that one in there. There are so many other releases, but those are the ones that are kind of at like the forefront of my mind at the moment, that I think you guys might enjoy as well because you have similar taste to me. I can put a few links in my bio for some lists so you can see for yourself. But yeah, so many books on our radar for 2026, so I hope this gave you a few to put on your list. So yeah, that brings us to the end of today's video. So thank you so much for watching today. If you've watched till the end, thank you so much. It truly means the absolute world to me. Comment below what you were most anticipated to read out of this list, or if there's another book you've heard about that you're really looking forward to releasing, please let me know in the comments. I can't wait to read them. I love you all so, so much, and I will see you in my next video.